Namaste everyone. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. The ongoing sessions are on Bhagavad Gita, Advaita perspective offered by Binduji. Here on chapter 4. Mainly the topic is Karma Vichara. Plays of the earlier rooms are available. You can access them in Clubhouse, in the house. Or you could go to the YouTube channel link shared in the chat. It's Advaita Retold. There are two other links for Apple Podcast and Spotify where you can access these talks too. There's also a book available on Amazon, which is penned by Artemisia based on Bindoji's insights into Advaita in the earlier discussions. So for housekeeping, I'll close the chat and hand raising when Bindoji is conducting the class, after which we'll open the channels for any further discussion for about half an hour or so. As always, thank you, Bindoji. Over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Namaste and welcome to all of you. Let me do my invocation. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartribhyo Vamsharishbhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashikritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Slokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyai Stavai Vedai Sangapada Panishadai Gayanti Yam Thamagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgadena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam na vidussura suragana Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha. Yesterday we saw that karmani akarmaya pasyet. Akarmani karmaya. That was the topic which Krishna is explaining or asking us to do that. So the bhashya of this is a very long one. Since most of the subjects have been covered, I will read and explain the bhashya part by part, and wherever it is required slight elaboration, I will do that. After that, we can go to the next verse. So Shankaracharya starts the bhashya like karmani. Kriyate iti karma. Karmani is the locative thing. So in action. So, but what is action? Kriyate iti karma. Whatever is being done is called action. Vyapara matram means activity. So karma is activity which is being done. Tasmin karmani. So the locative thing. So in karmani, akarma, karma abhavam yapashyet. He who sees in action, the absence of action, inaction. So inaction, or inaction, the absence of action. And in akarmani, cha karma abhave kartrutantratvad pravritti nivrittayoho. Akarmani, and in inaction, where action is absent. Seeing sees action. So, in inaction, seeing action. Why? Because kartritandritvat pravritti nivrittayoho. Because activity and inactivity depend upon the notion of agency. Kartritandritvat. That is the notion of agency. Pravritti and nivritti. Both activity and inactivity has the dependency on the agency for their respective words to become fruitful. Vastu aprapya eva hi sarva eva kriyakaragadi vyapara avidya bhumau eva. For all notions of action, agent and instruments occur only on the ground of ignorance without reaching the true reality. Aprapya, vastu aprapya. Without reaching the true vastutva means true act, true or the reality. Priya karakati vyavahara avidya bhumo eva. Avidya bhumi means on the ground of ignorance or on the basis of ignorance. Priya karakati, that is action, agent, instruments, etc. Karma yat pashyati saha buddhiman manusheshu. He who sees thus is the truly wise among the human beings. Sa yuktaha yogicha. He is yuktaha means is integrated, yuktaha, and yogicha is a yogin also. Krishna karmakrit, samasta karmakrit cha saha. He is considered to have performed all actions. All actions are performed, and it is considered he has performed all actions. Iti suyate karma akarmanayoho iteretara darshi. Thus, the one who perceives action and inaction correctly is being praised by Krishna himself. So, Shankaracharya in the first part explains the word meanings of what Krishna has intended to say. So, Shankaracharya explained that the enlightened person sees the actionless self. Even while actions occur through the body and recognize that all notions of actions belong to the ignorance. This insight dissolves the illusion of doership and frees one from the bondage of karma, etc. So this is the literal meaning of the first part. Then he goes on explaining that tad etat ukta pratibachanam api asakrit atyanta viparita darshana bhavitataya moha muhyamanaha lokaha. It continues to become confused again and again by the lokaha, means by people. When tatetat ukta prativachanam api, even though this reply has been given already, Krishna has said that Atma is akarta. Still he is repeating the same thing in a different vocabulary. Because muhyamanaha loka, the deeply conditioned and extremely mistaken perception by the world, remains the reason for becoming confused again and again. Shrutam api asakrit tattvam vismritya vismritya. Even after repeatedly hearing the truth, people forget it again and again. Shankaracharya doesn't have to say that. We all know. We have been listening to this truth for the last 4 or 5 years. Yet, it has not become our reality. Mithya prasangam avatarya chodayati. And repeatedly raise objection based on false assumptions. So all questions which arises in our mind, which is the reason why we are not convinced about these statements of the Upanishad and the teachings. And we repeatedly raise objections based on that Ajnana Samshaya Viparya, what is happening in the mind. Iti puna puna uttaram aha Bhagavan. Therefore, the all-merciful Ishvara gives the answer also every time when we forget it, to remind us again and again. Durvitneyatvam cha alakshya vastunaha. Because he recognizes, the Lord recognizes that this truth is extremely difficult to understand. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanu shochitum arhati. The 25th verse of 2nd chapter. The self is unmanaged, inconceivable. Avyaktam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate. It is avyakta, means unmanifest. Achintyoyam, it is inconceivable. Avikari, it doesn't go through any modifications. Uchyate. Tasmad evam viditvainam. Evam tasmad ainam viditva. Knowing that is the nature of the self. Na anishochantum arhasi. There is no reason for you to lament upon that individuality. He also said in the 20th verse, Na jayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavida na bhuyaha ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranaha na hanyade hanyamane sharire. It is neither born nor does it die. All those things which we have studied in the 20th verse of 2nd chapter. Shankaracharya is quoting that. Ityadina atmani karma abhavaha shruti smriti nyaya prasiddhaha. The absence of action in the self in this manner is established by the Shruti, the Upanishads, the Smriti, the Gita, etc., Nyaya Prasiddhaha, and by logic. Tasmin Atmani Karma Abhave Akarmani Karma Vipirida Darshanam Achintya Nirudham. Yet, even though the self is actionless, people firmly perceive action in that which is actually inaction. This is the first time he is bringing the term. People firmly perceive action in that which is actually inaction. The self is actionless, yet people firmly perceive the actionless self in action. Yataha kim karma kima karmeti kavayoho atra mohitaha. Therefore, Krishna said that even the wise are confused about what action and what are inactions. Dehadi ashrayam karma atmani adhyaropya. Actions that belong to the body, etc., and the senses, etc., are superimposed on the self. Aham karta mama etat karma. People think that I am the doer. This action is mine. Maya asya karmanaha phala bhoktavya. Since I am the doer and the action is mine, I must experience the result of this action. Tada, similarly, aham tushni bhavami. I will remain inactive. I will be sitting always in meditation, or I am remaining inactive. Yena aham nirayasaha akarmaha sukhi syam. So that when I sit like that, I may become free from actions, effort. I'll be inactive and therefore I'll be happy. Karya karana ashrayam vyapara uparamam tat kritam cha sukhitvam atmani adhyaropya. They attribute the cessation of bodily activity and resulting comfort to the self. That is karya karana ashrayam. Karya karanam means the body. Ashrayam, attribute of that. Vyapara uparamam, when resulting in the inactivity, bodily inactivity. Tat kritam cha sukhitvam, and the happiness or the comfort resulting out of that. Atmani adhyaropya. They superimpose that onto the self. Actually, it is the body which is inactive, and the happiness of the inactivity of the body they think is the sukham or the happiness of Atman. They attribute it onto the Atman. Therefore, the people think, na karomi kinchit tushnim sukhamase iti abhimanyate loka. Thus people think that I do nothing, I sit happily and at rest. Tatra idam lokasya viparita darshanam apanayanaya aha Bhagavan. To remove this mistaken perception, that adhyaropa of the world, Krishna says, karmanya karmaha yapashyet ityadi. That is why he has mentioned that in the verse, he who sees inaction in action. Atracha karma karmaiva sat karya karana ashraya. Here action is indeed action. In activity that depends upon the body and the instruments and organs, etc. Karma rahite avikriye atmani sarva adhyastam. But it is superimposed by everyone upon the self, which is in reality actionless and changeless. Avikriye atmani adhyastam. What? Karma rahite. All those. Yataha Pantitau api aham karomi iti manyate. Even the learned person thinks, I perform action. Ataha atma samavetataya sarvaloka prasiddhe karmani. Therefore action which is universally attributed to the self, whether he is a Pandita or a Mudha, all of them attribute action onto the self which is actually actionless. How? Nadi kulasteshu iva vriksheshu gadi pratipa lomyena. It is like the illusion of motion of trees standing on the river bank. The river bank the trees are motionless, but the motion is attributed onto them when the boat is moving in the river. Same way, karma akarma bhavam yada bhudam gatya abhavamiva vriksheshu ya pashyet. He who perceives that action, the absence of action, in that action, the absence of action. He who perceives, that is, just as one correctly sees that the trees are actually motionless. So that action, the absence of action. Akarmani cha karya karana vyapara uparame. And the apparent inaction, which is merely the cessation of bodily activity. Karmavat atmani adhyaropite. Action is nevertheless superimposed upon the self. Tushnim akurvan sukhamase iti ahangara abhisandhi hedutvad. Because of the egoistic notion, I sit quietly doing nothing and enjoy comfort. It is not that the body sitting quietly is inactivity. Still, the feeling that I am sitting doing nothing and enjoying comfort is the I is actually should be that of the self. But he is now considering his body as the self. Therefore, the superimposition takes place. Tasmin akarmani cha karmaya pasyet. He who sees action even in that inaction. That means the person who is knowledgeable, he will be able to see that even sitting quietly is not inaction. There also action is there. Yaha evam karma akarma vibhagatnyaha. He who thus understands the distinction between action and inaction, sa buddhiman pantitaha manisheshu. He is truly the wise among the human beings. Sa yuktaha yogi. He is the integrated and the yogi. Krishna karma krit cha saha. He is regarded as having performed all actions. Ashubhat mokshitaha kritakrityaha bhavati. This word is very important, kritakritya. Shankaracharya keeps on using it. Ashubhat mokshitaha. Liberated or freed from the evil. Ashubhat. Evil of samsara. Kritakrityaha bhavati. He becomes one who has accomplished everything. Kritam kritya. There is nothing more to be done. Now the passage which is following, Shankaracharya is reporting and criticizing an alternate commentary which was existing prior to him, who interpret the verse in terms of nitya karma as obligatory duties and their absence. Shankaracharya presents that view before rejecting the same section in the next section. So he, having completed the intent of Bhagavan, is now taking on the misinterpretation done by the previous commentator. Ayam shlokaha anyata vyakhyata kaischit. The same verse has been interpreted differently by some commentators. How? Nityanam kila karmanam ishwararte anushtiyamananam tat phala bhavat akarmani tani uchyate gaunya vritya. Obligatory actions, nitya karmas, when performed for the sake of the Lord, are said to be inaction because they do not produce any specific fruit. This being a figurative usage, gaunya vritya. They say that the nitya karmas, you don't see any specific fruit. Only when you do Uttaragameshti or Surgagameshti or, Vrishtigameshti, all those things, you have a specific result when you do yajna for a son or a progeny or a rain, etc. But nitya karmas, the daily obligations, obligatory actions, there are no tangible or seen any specific fruit. Therefore, it is a figurative usage. Tesham cha akaranam akarma. And the non-performance of those duties are the one which are called as inaction. That is, nitya karma's non-performance is called inaction as per them. Tatcha pratyavaya phalatvad karma uchyate gaunyavritya. But because such omissions produces negative result, that is, if nitya karmas is considered as inaction, and if you do not do that, they produce negative result, pratyavaya, or sin. And it is figuratively called action. Therefore, it is called an action. You should understand that since it is not producing any visible result, it is deemed inaction. But at the same time, it is action when not performed produces a sin, pratyavaya. Therefore, it is called an action. This is how they interpreted the word karmani akarmaya, akarmani karmaya. That is how they interpreted this particular statement of Krishna. Tatra nitye karmani akarmaya pasyet phala bhavad. Thus, one who sees inaction in an obligatory action because it produces no fruit of action. Yatha dhenurapi gauhu agau ityuchyate shirakyam phalam na prayachati iti. Just as a cow that does not produce the milk may be called not a cow because it does not yield milk. In the same way, advat. Tata nitya akarane tu karmani cha karmaya pasyet. And one who sees action in the non-performance of the nitya karmas or obligatory duties, narakadi pratyavaya phalam prayachati iti. Because such omissions of nitya karmas or the obligatory duties produces negative consequences such as hell. Na etat yuktam vyakhyanam. So Shankaracharya is refuting now. This interpretation is not reasonable. Evam jnanat ashubhat moksha anuvapatte. Because liberation from evil cannot follow from such knowledge. Yat jnatva mokshase ashubhat. Iti bhagavata ukta vachanam bhadyate. Because if it happens that way, the liberation from such knowledge which is, free you from evil by doing nitya karma is a moksha. Because Krishna himself has said that yat jnatva mokshase ashubhat. It will be contracting the Krishna's statement. Knowing this, you will be freed from evil. Katam also. Nityanam anushtanant ashubhat syat nama mokshanam. Freedom from evil may come from performing obligatory duty. Because you don't have to know anything out of it. Jnanat mokshate, yat jnatva. Because without even knowing, if you perform the obligatory duties, the evil will not befall on you. So therefore freedom can happen. Natu tesha phala abhavat jnanat. Not from the knowledge that they produce no result. The knowledge has no role to play in such case. Nahi nityanam phala abhavat jnananam ashubha mukti phalatvena choditam. For knowledge of absence of results in an obligatory action is not prescribed as a means of liberation from evil. He is giving the reason for it. The means from liberation from evil is not based on the prescription of the results of the obligatory action. Nitya karma jnanam va. Nor is mere knowledge of obligatory action prescribed as such and it is being done. Nacha bhagavata eva iha uktam. Nor has Krishna stated here such a thing here, such a teaching here. Etena akarmani karma darshanam pratyuktam. By this reasoning, the interpretation of seeing action in an action in that sense of nitya karmas is refuted. Nahi akarmani karma iti darshanam kartavyataya iha chodyate. For the perception of action in an inaction is not taught here as an obligation. Nitya karmas have no such teachings in it, action and inactions. Nityasya tu kartavyata matram. The obligatory duties are merely have a status of something that must be performed. That's all. There is no knowledge aspect to it. Nacha akaranat nityasya pratyavayo bhavati iti vijnanat kinchit phalam syat. Nor does the knowledge that the omission of obligatory due to leads to sin produce any special result. So the knowledge does not produce any special result. Napi nitya akaranam neyatvena choditam. Nor is the non-performance of obligatory duty prescribed as something to be known. Napi karma akarma iti mitya darshanad ashubhat mokshana. Nor could liberation from evil arise from a mistaken understanding of action and inaction. Buddhimatvam yuktataya krishna karma kritvadi cha phalam upapadyete stutiva. Nor could such an interpretation justify the praise in the verse that one who becomes wise, yuktaha, integrated, and the performer of all action, krishna karma krit. Mityajnanam eva hi sakshat ashubhata rupam. Therefore, the false knowledge itself is directly the nature of evil. Kutaha anyasmat ashubhat mokshanam. The question is now asked, how then could liberation from evil arise from something else? Nahi tamasa nivartagam bhavati. The darkness cannot remove darkness. That is the answer for it. Nanu karmani yat akarma darshanam akarmani va karma darshanam natat mityajnanam. But one may say, seeing inaction in action and action in inaction is not false knowledge. Kim tarhi gauna phala abhava bhava nimittam. Then what? What then? It is merely a figurative language based on the presence or absence of results. These are the statements of the opponent. Shankaracharya says, no. Karma akarma vijnanat api gaunat phalasya ashravanat. Because no result is stated in the scripture from such figurative knowledge of action and inaction. Napi, not only that, Shrutahani Ashruta Parikalpanayam Kachtit Vishesha Upalabhyate. Nor is there any advantage in abandoning the actual meaning of the text and inventing an unheard meaning. So the unheard meaning is about the Nitya, the obligatory duties and their action and inaction, etc., which is abandoning the actual meaning of the text. Swashabdena api sakyam vaktum. The point could easily be stated directly in simple words. Nitya karmanam phalam nasti. Akaranat cha tesham narakapataha iti syat. For example, how can it be simply stated? Obligatory duties produce no fruit of action, but their omission leads to hell. Pratyavaya. Tatra vyajena paravyamoha rupena karmani akarmaya pasyet ityadi na kim. Then why use a deceptive expression such as seeing inaction in action that can confuse people? Tatra evam vyachakshayenai Bhagavata uktam vakyam loka vyamohartam iti vyaktam kalpitam syat. If interpreted that way, then Krishna's words would appear to have been spoken merely to confuse people. Nacha etat rupena vakyena dakshaniyam vastu. Nor is the truth something that must be protected through deceptive wording. And there is no truth or nothing, something which need to be protected. Napi shabdantarena punah punaha uchyamanam subodham syat. Nor would repeating the same meaning in different words make it clearer. Ityevam bhaktum yuktam. Thus, such an interpretation is unreasonable. Karmanyeva adhikaraste na phaleshu katajana ityatra hi sputatara ukta artaha. Because the meaning of regarding action has already been stated clearly in the verse Karmanyeva adhikaraste. Your right is to the action alone. The 47th verse of 2nd chapter. Na punarvakyaiviyo bhavati. There is no need to repeat the same idea again here. Sarvatra prasastam bodhavyam cha kartavyam eva. Moreover, scripture teaches that is beneficial and must be understood. Na nishprayojanam bodhavyam iti uchyate. It does not instruct something which is useless as something to be known. Nacha mityajnana bodhavyam bhavati. The false knowledge cannot be something that the scripture instructs us to understand. Tat pratyupastapitam va vastu abhasam. Nor can a mere illusion of reality be the object of instruction. Na api nityanam akaranat abhavat pratyavayo bhavo utpatti. Nor can the omission of obligatory duties produce a real entity such as sin from mere non-existence. So this statement is to be understood. The omission of obligatory duties means that non-performance of a duty produces a real entity such as sin. Action producing something is understandable. But inaction of or non-performance of a duty, how can it really entity some? Because non-existence. Non-performance is non-existence. Because in the 16th verse of 2nd chapter, Krishna has said, Nasado vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate sada. it is said that the unreal never comes into being, nor the being will ever become unreal. Katam asataha sajjayataha. Chandogya Upanishad also says that. How could existence arise from non-existence? Idi darsitam asataha sajjanma pradishedat. The scripture denies the possibility of existence arising from a non-existence. Therefore, non-performing of the obligatory duties cannot give rise to sins. Asataha satutpattim bruvataha asadeva sadbhavet. If one claimed that existence arises from non-existent, then the non-existent would become existent. Sacha api asad bhavet. And what exists can also become non-existent. Sacha ayuktam sarva pramana virodat. And this reasoning is invalid because it contradicts all valid means of knowledge. Nacha nishpalam vididyat karma shastram. Nor would the scripture prescribe an action that produces no result. That the Mimamsakas are saying that, Nitya karmas have no visible result, so there is no result. So that is being objected here. Dukkha swaruvatvad, because action itself involves effort and difficulty. Dukkasya cha buddhi purvakataya karyatva anuvapatte. And it is unreasonable to assume that something involving suffering would be deliberately prescribed without purpose. Dukkasya cha buddhi purvagataya karyatva anuvapatte. It is unreasonable, again, to assume that something involving suffering would be deliberately prescribed without purpose. Tadakarane cha narakapada bhugamat. And if the omission leads to hell, anartha yaiva ubhayathapi karani cha akarane cha. Then both performing and non-performing action would lead only to misfortune. Shastram nishpalam kalpitam syad. In that case, the scripture itself will become meaningless. So abhyugama virodascha. Such a view would also contradict its own assumptions. Nityam nishpalam karma iti abhyupagamya mokshaphalaya iti bruvataha. For it first claims that obligatory actions produce no result, yet later says they lead to liberation. So, Shastra has not done any assessment that Nitya Karma, if done, there is no result. It has said that, later it has said that it will lead to liberation. Tasmat yada shrutaha evarta. Therefore, the meaning must be taken exactly as how the text states. Therefore, karmanni akarmaya ityade. So the verse, he who sees action in inaction or inaction in action. Tadacha vyakhyada asmabhihi shlokaha. And thus, the verse has been explained by us in the correct manner, not the way in which this in statement of commentary which was there in between. So 14th verse declared the vision, Pashyet, that constitute Tattvajnana in the domain of action. Karmani akarmaya Pashyet. And it defined its bearer as Buddhiman Yuktaha Karma Krishna Karma Krit. Now we are moving to the 19th verse, which fleshes out that portrait describing the yukta from two angles simultaneously. The inner condition of a yukta, kama sankalpa varjita, free from desire-laden intention, what the jnani's action lacks at the root. And the metaphysical ground, jnana agni dagda karman, whose karmas have been burned by the fire of knowledge. Why the jnani's action has that character. Shankaracharya introduces two of the Gita's most philosophically charged compounds, Kama Sankalpa Varjita and Jnanagni Dagda Karman, and anchors them with the testimony of Buddha, the awakened one. The awakened one called that one Pandita. Therefore, the verse thus has both descriptive and epistemological weight. The portrait of a jnani is valid by those who themselves know it. Tadedat karmani akarma darshanam suyate. Now, karmani akarma darshanam. How the inactivity in action is being described. The 19th verse. Yasya sarve samarambhaha kama sankalpa varjitaha jnanagni dagda karmanam tamahu panditam buddha. Yah. Yasya means whose. Sarva, all. Samaramba, sam plus aramba, means undertaking or enterprise or beginnings of action. So, whose undertakings, all undertakings are kama sankalpa varjitaha, means devoid of kama and sankalpa. And samaramba is the adjective for it. Samaramba, sama sankalpa varjita samaramba. Jnanagni dagda karmanam, one whose karmas have been full burnt by the fire of knowledge. Tamahu panditam buddha. Tam means that one or him. Ahu means declare or they call. Panditam, learned one, the wise one. Buddha, there are two nouns. Two. One is Pandita, other one is Buddha. Buddha means Bodha, the wise one or the awakened one. From Buddha, Buddha the word comes from the Buddha. So Samarambha means undertaking, enterprise or commencement of action. It's a willful, intentional beginning of actions. The moment where the intention meets action. Intention is at the mental level. Action can be from mental level or the physical level. But the intention has to meet the action, then only it is called an enterprise or an undertaking or a beginning of an action. The philosophical aspect of the word samaramba locates the root of action not in physical movement, but in the initial intentional act called the sankalpa that precedes and generates the action. Therefore, sarve samaramba means all undertaking or every single instance of The jnani is initiating an action without exception. That is why sarve samarambha. Yasya sarve samarambha establishes the scope of qualification for the jnani. Not some actions, not most actions, but every single undertaking. Sarve kama sankalpa varjita. That is, undertaking would indicate residual kartrutva abhimana. So the completeness of sarve signals total freedom from kama sankalpa. That is kama sankalpa varjita. Varjita means freedom. Across the entire field of action. This freedom is only possible when the knowledge or the jnana of non-doership, akartrutva, is complete. Not a partial knowledge, but a complete identification of the non-doership born out of knowledge that I am the Atman. It is the aparoksha anubhava of Atman's essential non-agency, not merely an intellectual conviction. Therefore, the kama sankalpa varjitatvam, or the nature of freedom from the kama and sankalpa. Kama is desire. Sankalpa is the mental determination or volition or the purposive intention. The cognitive act of forming a resolution towards a specified desire as an outcome. So sankalpa is not a simple word. We have to understand that it is deeply embedded and powered by our vasanas and intentions in the mind. It is a purposive intention. And the intention comes from our, what you call, disposition of our nature of the prakriti, sattva, rajas, tamas in the mind at the body level, which gives rise to the cognitive act of forming a resolution. So sankalpa is a cognitive bridge between kama and karma. Between the desire, these give rise to kama. Kama is formed intention. I will do X to obtain Y. Or I will do this to get that. Which leads to the karma, the action in pursuit of the Y or the other thing. Once we remove the sankalpa, the karma has no phala akanksha or the thirst for the fruit of action. And therefore the intention is not driven by the desire for a fruit. Therefore the karma is no longer a sakama karma. And when it is not a sakama karma or without a desire, action without a desire, there is no karma lepa. So sankalpa varjita, kama sankalpa varjita, pairing of both kama and sankalpa is precise. They are the most synonymous but complementary to each other. Kama is the effective pole or desire, want of craving, whereas sankalpa is the cognitive pole, the formed intention, resolution, or the mind's purposive direction towards the desired object. Together, kama sankalpa constitute the complete inner mechanism of a desire-driven action. Therefore, desire crystallizing into intention or crystallizing into action. Therefore, removing the both cuts at the root of kama sankalpa varjita, kama karma completely. Varjita means divide or excluded or without. So freedom from kama and sankalpa, those undertakings from which the desire and the intention have been excluded, is the word qualifying the samarambha, the undertaking as a whole, and sarva kamara samarambha, entire activities. So kama sankalpa varjita, Shankaracharya, is the operational definition of nishkama karma at the highest level. And he distinguishes it from merely suppressing the desire. It is not a suppression of a desire. The Ajnani's attempt at nishkama karma by suppressing kama through vairagya and discipline, it's a genuine sadhana, but one where kama is still present in a latent or a vasana rupa. Whereas the jnani's condition is that natural, spontaneous absence of kama and sankalpa, not suppressed but dissolved at the root through tattva jnana of akartrutva. When Atman is recognized as Purna, Avyaya, Nityatrupta, the kama which arises from the Apurnata simply do not arise in such a person. There is no sankalpa because there is no phala sought, no intention for the result. There is no kama because Nitya Purna, he is eternally complete. Therefore, Atman lacks nothing. This is that Sthita Prajna's role, which the verse 55 explains in the second chapter. Prajahadi yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. When one abandons all desires harbored in the mind, the Sthita Prajna's condition, which is identified here as the same condition as Kama Sankalpa Varjita Pandita. Both portrays the Sthita Prajna and Pandita at the same level. Both of them are the same Jnani described at from a different angles. And how does it happen? Jnana Agni Dagda Karman. Jnana, knowledge, Agni, fire. Jnana Agni is the fire of knowledge. The fire that is Jnana, or Jnana conceived as a fire. The Jnana itself is the Agni, the purifying, consuming and forming fire of awakened understanding. This is this verse's central metaphor and one of Gita's most powerful images of a Jnani. Dagda means burnt or consumed or incinerated, which has been completely consumed by the fire of knowledge, reduced to ashes, leaving no bija, no seed capable of germination, no seed of desire, karma, sankalpa, germination is possible. Karman, what does it burn? It burns the karma. The samskara generating residue is treated as the karma here. The karma bija, or the karma, the seed of karma, that accumulates through kartrutva abhimana, the egoiship, and the phalaspriha, the potential for desire out of the action. These two together generates the future janma. It is this karma bija that the fire of knowledge burns, jnanagni. Not the vyavaharika actions themselves, which continue as prarabdha, but the binding residue, lepa, of karma lepa, that would otherwise generate new samskara, is burned by the fire of knowledge. Therefore, jnanagni dagda karman, meaning one whose karma or the binding residue of karma has been burnt by the fire of jnana. The compound refers to the person so characterized as Tam Ahu, is the Tam in the verse. So Jnanagni Dagda Karman receives the most expansive commentary in the verse by Shankaracharya. For it encodes the complete Advaitic karma moksha mechanism. The Jnanagni metaphor in full is the fire as a three relevant properties in the Vedic thought. The fire is dahaka, burning, means consuming as the fuel. Shodaka, the fire can purify by removing impurity from what it purifies. Bija nashakaha, as a seed destroyer. The burnt seeds cannot germinate again. So Jnanagni possesses all the three properties applied to karma. Dahaka means jnana burns the accumulated sanchita karma stored as karma. The vast stock of past karma awaiting fructification. The 37th verse, which will follow later, which this verse anticipates now. Yatadi asmi samidhornir basmasat kurate arjuna jnanagdi sarva karmani basmasat kurate tata. As the kindled fire reduces fuel to ashes, so that Jnanagni reduces all karmas to ash. That is the 37th verse which we will be studying later. Same way, the Sanchita karma is completely incinerated, not merely awakened but rendered incapable of rectification. As a Shodaka, Jnana purifies the Andakarana, the karma mala, impurity of karma, kartrutva, abhimana in us, making it Shuddha, pure, Shanda, peaceful, Nirlipta, unstained. This is the Purti or purification. Jnana tapasa puta. In the 10th verse we studied that. As a bija nashakaha, the most importantly for moksha, Jnana destroys the entire karma bija, the seed capacity of karma to generate future janmas. A burnt seed, dagda bija, cannot sprout. Na ankurasya kalpate. Similarly, Jnana Agni Dagda Karma cannot produce Punarjanma. It is rendered incapable of germinating into future embodiment. This is the direct mechanism of Na Punarjanma, which was mentioned in the 9th verse. Therefore, the Jnana Agni burns Karma Bija that would otherwise generate into next birth. We will stop here and we'll continue the discussion tomorrow regarding the Jnana Agni and how it is helping us to reduce Sanchita Agami Prarabdha Karmas, and why he is called a Pandita and Buddha. All these things need to be discussed in detail, which we will do tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyavad.
Thank you very much, Binduji. Again, a very deep session. I've opened the chat and hand raising. Is there any follow-up questions or clarifications?
Namaste, Srini.
Namaste, Vinduji. One small question about how this was explained, right? Like one is the suppression of desires and practicing vairagya way of what was that? It is and other one is where the root of the desires itself gets dissolved, right? Two kinds of things are explained in this lecture. So my question is, like in the third chapter, the Karma Yoga, which method is being taught? Is it the first one or the second one? When they say Ishwararpana Buddhi and all those things.
The yajna principle is what is being taught. How to make the chitta shuddhi, not to the level of pandita or jnani. It is a preamble for that. At the third chapter.
Yeah, so it is so the Ishwararpana Buddhi is one kind of a controlling your desires through your action or intention.
It doesn't control your desires. It only clarifies what type of desires you should nurture so that you can use it as a yajnartha. Yajnartho karmano anyatra. That what type of karmas can be desired so that you can offer it to the Lord. If that way you will develop a chitta shuddhi that pure. But your knowledge that you are the akarta atma is not going to come when you are doing it as an Ishwararpana yajna.
Is there a Chitta Shuddhi state possible which doesn't have this Atma Jnana kind of thing? Is that it sounds like a middle ground, right? Like the parking lot or something like that. Is that even possible, or it's just a methodology of explanation?
No, it's a part of the sadhana. It is possible because Atmajnana is, see, Atmajnana as an intellectual knowledge may be what you are referring to. But here, in this particular verse, when Pandita Budai, Ahutamahu Pandita Budai, which we will discuss tomorrow, is indicating to that one who has attained that jnana, and that jnana has come to fructification to the level that he is now identify himself as the akarta, nityatripta, purna atman. So from his point of view, there is nothing which is in the form of a karma which is he is doing. The kartartva abhimana has gone totally from him. So there is no Ishwararpana karma which he sees from his point. Whether he does it or not, he doesn't see his that the karta. The sharira is doing or sharira is performing an action is the nature of the prakriti gunai, guna guneshu vartante, that way. And he has no identification with it to even offer it as an Ishwararpana yajna.
Yeah. The case of Pandita is clear where his knowledge has fructified. Now, other than this kind of Pandita, is there any other sample or some kind of person who can be considered as having Chitta Shuddhi? Right? So, Chitta Shuddhi should also mean Chitta Shuddhi plus Jnana, right? Is there a variation where there is only Chitta Shuddhi but no Jnana? Such a variation, does it exist?
Yes, it does exist.
So how would that be?
When you are performing at the actions which you are performing with the kartrutva bodha, that I am the doer, but I am offering it to the Lord, yajnartham. He need not be knowing that I am the Atma, or the nature of Atma is what I am, or that identification, the aparoksha jnana has not taken place in him. He still identifies himself as the body, mind, intellect, performing actions, but he has sattva as increased in his this thing by reducing the rajas and tamas. Therefore, he offers it as a yajnartham.
Okay. Like a person who has perfected karma yoga, that kind of person.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Bindaji.
Thank you, Srini.
Hello, sir. Excuse me.
Wait, Abhilash, you are on the order. We'll call you.
Okay.
Yes, Vinod.
Let Rahul go first. I think yesterday he had a question. I wanted that to finish. I'll talk later.
Okay. Yes, Rahul.
Namaste, Binduji. My question,
Namaste, Rahul.
question is a little bit more practical. It's like regarding pain. Like, does Advaita provide any kind of solution?
You're not very clear. Your voice is breaking, Rahul.
Okay, I think my connection is bad. Maybe I will talk later.
You can hear properly, or your voice is, your hearing also this thing bad? I think Rajesh, you can go ahead. Rahul will come later.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
My question is, we are referring this knowledge or wisdom as Yajna and Jnana Agni. Okay, many verses we are referring to it like this. My question is it just a metaphorical use, or is it really work like fire inside us?
That is what is going to be explained tomorrow, because the nature of in which Agni has got three roles to play, and how knowledge does the three roles, what the Agni does in the case of material things, how does the knowledge does that for the purpose of Kama and Sankalpa, etc. will be known, will be explained tomorrow, and then you can understand that the similarity between the two. Because I have not completed that aspect today.
Yeah, question is, but still it works as a Agni inside.
Yes.
Right?
It just as what a fire will do for a metal purification, it burns out the unwanted organic matter, then it purifies the residual metal into two categories. One is purified metal, which is the majority in the mix, and the rest of the metals which are impure, whether it is gold or silver or whatever may be that will form as a precipitate either at the bottom or it will be floating, which can be removed, which is leaving the pure metal separate from these two. So all those methodology of purifying a metal is what exactly you have to keep it in mind when the knowledge is being discussed in the place. It will make the idea that we are the non-doer, pure Atman who has no doership as the thing, and all the impurities that are kartrutru abhimana, what we have as a doer, is not of Atma, but that of the mind and the intellect, the association with the body. That is how it is segregating between the two. Thank you, Rajesh. Yes, Abhilash, you can ask your question now.
Namaste.
Namaste.
So my question is little out of the box. That is, if a person wants to activate his 7 chakras and also want to open his third eye for higher level of consciousness, there is, if it is any risky without doing Guru.
This subject is not that of Advaita, so I am not an expert to explain that. You may have to approach a yogi who does this Kundalini type of practices for that. Advaita doesn't accept even the body as real. So the 7 chakras in the body also has no relevance from the point of view of Advaita. Advaita is totally different approach towards what is called a method of knowledge, not as a method of action of yoga.
Oh, so okay. So can you tell me how can I find any guru?
I'm not an expert in those lines, Abhilash. You may have to find out your own.
So thank
With this today's international internet and everything, you may be able to find out, locate it. I'm sorry, I can't help you.
no problem, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Binduji.
Yes,
Binduji,
Rahul's connection was bad. I don't know whether
yeah,
he's gone.
He'll come back later.
Come back. Yeah, I'll contact him later.
Yeah. So anyway, so my question is that while Karma Yoga covers variety of actions and all, in the modern world, we kind of have, we keep information in our head. Like we believe that something is true, something is false and so on. Right? And that is why usually that is what leads to wars and all ultimately. Though at individual level we are not participating in the war, but just having that information, like simple example is taking sides, for example, right? Even though we don't really know the reality. Truthfully speaking, we will not have access to the kind of data which is required to even recognize if somebody is, right or wrong or whatever, their actions are right or wrong and all that. But generally speaking, we find that even among the people who are in spirituality and all, almost everybody has very readily, they kind of, they keep this information. Okay. And even in spiritual circles, for example, I find many people are treated as crooks, like many teachers, many these things and all. Even though the real data is not really there. In the sense that they will just use some public information and all that. Now, it may not be any harmful kind of content. It is just an attitude or whatever. But doesn't it actually occupy your mind and make you kind of it will have some repercussion somewhere. And this actually is not a chitta shuddhi, meaning it's an obstacle to chitta shuddhi, right?
See, that these type of things are happening time immemorial. Because the approach one need to take is that is why in the Upanishad it is very clearly says, Sa Gurumeva Vigacche Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. He should approach a guru who is well versed in the Shastra and who abides in the Brahma as his own reality. This is what is the qualification. In fact, when we go to the 13th chapter, Shankaracharya spends one full long commentary on that aspect of the type of guru one should approach. So you have to wait till the 13th chapter for such guru's definition to be discussed in detail. But what we were taught is that the knowledge of right interpretation of the Shastras and no concessions in the description of the words of the Upanishad. You cannot twist it to suit the modern knowledge or anything. It can imbibe the modern knowledge into it, merge into it, but the Shastra should not be turned to meet the modern definitions. No, that cannot happen. The modern definitions are still empirical in nature, and that describes only about the world and our transactional world. Whereas the Shastra, which is talking about the Atman or Brahman, and which is not in a transactional realm. So both should be clear in our mind when we say that he should be a Shastrajna or one expert in the Shastras, and Brahmanishta means abiding in his nature as Brahman. He knows that he is Brahman. So he will be talking from the level of Brahman, not as a person who is transactionally operating in the world.
No, Binduji, my question is actually a bit different. It has nothing to do with which guru one should select and all. That is not the question that I had. It
Then
actually is more on karma. Like we know that, for example, if I am doing anything in the world, that is a karma, and it has a very clear-cut objective, and the karma and all that, it's very, very well established. But when we hold opinions about other people, because we are in the world, opinions are bound to exist. Is that karma? Because
yes,
the opinions are held because we don't have factual information. So we have to
yes,
use partial information and we hold opinions, correct?
that is also karma only,
Yeah,
because
but it is not directly leading to any particular physical action, right? Because,
it is not physical action alone we are talking about. Manasa,
okay,
vacha, karmana, by body, mind, and intellect. All that what is being done, identifying as the individuality here, is included in the action. But akarma, the non-doership, is when you identify you as the pure consciousness or awareness, where there is no activity at all.
no, but in that case, there's no need to hold any opinion, right? It is much more easier to say, I really don't know anything about it, so I'll not have an opinion about something. That is much more easier stand for such a person, right?
Yeah, that because he doesn't identify himself as a person who has the knowledge of the transactional world. The transactional world is seen as an appearance in his non-doership. So
No,
he may not
maybe,
know
yeah.
see the full knowledge about the transactional world with opinion or knowledge or partial knowledge is not of importance to such a person.
Actually, that is the much more easier task. But here, when people are on the way, they may not be fully, what you can call, they are not in the state of that type of recognition. So, but they are like, recognizing the importance of Chitta Shuddhi and all that. Right? In that context, recognizing that they hold opinions and therefore rejecting them is a wise way is what I feel. I just want, because what happens is that it is a very simple fact to recognize that we don't really know the reality, right? People are going to show up in different ways.
That is why we know the reality of a transactional world is different from the reality of the absolute real. So you don't mix up between the reality, word reality, for the purpose of empirical transactions and empirical truth. The Advaita or the Shastric way of reality is that yadne vepacharati, that which will never change at any point of time or space or whatever may be the condition. That is what is the absolute reality. The transactional reality is knowing the reality, unknowing the reality, opinions and non-opinions, facts, figures. All those things will be bound by the time and space and causation in the transactional world. That will change. Therefore, Advaita is not interested in that.
No, but if there is an option of Chitta Shuddhi, of what we can take in and what we don't have to take in, should one go with that or not? Assuming that he is like not ordinary person who is just trying to follow these kind of things, not fully realized or not fully into recognizing the other reality.
Yeah, he will move toward that in the process when he realizes these things are of not much importance. That is where the Chitta Shuddhi is defined as that he becomes lesser and lesser interested in the transactional matters.
Okay, Bindaji. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Namaste, Venkat.
Namaste, Binduji. Binduji, I think I took the cue from yesterday that there are two portions, that inversion. I think this is very, very important. It cannot be missed. I thought I'll just read back again.
Yep.
First one is, akarma in karma is very much prevailing teaching, right? Being a Sakshi Bhava, that Vilakshana Sakshi, and from there you sort of perceive that akarma in karma. That is very clear. The second one was something that was a tough one. This is the karma in akarma is a tough one. This is where the challenge was. Then this is exactly the taking cue from Vinod discussion. He who sees this third party perspective, right? The pravurti, nivrutti, all that. You had to go back to verse 17. That is where bodhavyam happens really. Karma, vikarma, akarma. All that is a bodhavyam. Those variations, recognized that bodhavyam is a recognition. Hence further, one sees, karma in akarma.
Yes.
I think this is a critical shift. If this is not done, then it will, put someone D to whack. That viparya continue to happen.
Yes, absolutely. You're right.
So this is a critical shift. If it is not done, I think it will, then the future verses will go, it will be partial. So that turning point need to continue. Sorry, I think thanks for, giving the cue yesterday. That pravurti, nivrutti, all that, one who is beyond all that, is in the second shift. That is the inversion.
Yes.
So this is clear.
As you rightly said, that all the three has to be understood perfectly. Then only you can see both the views, karmani akarma and akarmani karma.
Yeah, Binoji. So incidentally, I referred that Abhinava Gupta.
Okay.
So he said, he who perceives inaction in his own action. Okay, and then he said, in the action of others, perceives his own action. He is wise among men. He is established in yoga and he is the performer of all actions. That inversion, perceives in the action of others, perceives his own action. I think that covers the, karma, vikarma, akarma, all of it. There is no, he sees everything. Hence, I think that may be a Seta Prajna, really.
Yeah.
So,
Sita Prajna. Sita Prajna is the real jnani who sees both aspects of karma and akarma from the point of view of the self as well as Sakshi.
Got it, Binduji. I think that Buddhi will talk further as time permits. That bodhavyam happened to the Buddhi.
Yes.
That is an interesting turning point, which has never been as, perceived part of the whole setup. And how Buddhi is, eventually a fulcrum that still operates, yet not available. That fulcrum is there still. Is that become the universal knowledge? Oh, that's interesting, but we'll keep the question a little later.
Right.
Thanks, Madhuji, again.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Prakash, we'll wind up today.
Yes. Thanks everyone for coming for this session. And as usual, you can check on the replays if you want to do the Sravana Manana. They're available in Clubhouse, or you can go to the YouTube channel. This particular room might not be available yet on YouTube, but the earlier rooms are available on YouTube channel. And the other three links provided are for the Apple, Spotify, and a book penned by Artemisia called The Imaginary Door. It's available in the Amazon website. So we'll meet again tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. IST for continuing the Bhagavad Gita classes. Thank you very much, Binduji. Over to you to close the room.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Srini, Vinod, Venkat, and Abhilash who came up. And Rahul, sorry we could not connect. I'll chat with him directly on his question. But my request is that I am trying my level best to explain the deep meaning of both karma, akarma, vikarma, karmani, akarma, akarmani, karma. But I'll be definitely falling short, may not be able to explain exactly and make it is easy for us to understand. So my sincere request to all of you is that read as much as possible, go through the other commentaries and come out with questions so that we can, like Venkat is doing, so that we can, bring in clarity for myself as well as for others. The way in which I have understood and I am explaining it may not be perfectly fitting everybody's ideas and understanding. Vinod is trying to do that. Venkat is trying to do. Srini is trying to do. I want all of you to contribute so that, it benefits everyone. I'll try my level best. Please be helpful to each other. We'll see tomorrow. Continue from there. But if questions are there, I'm ready to take more on time and answer that and then get clarified bit for all of our sake. See you all tomorrow. Hari Om. Good night.
Hari Om.
Very well. Right.